Very pleased to have with us our special guest for today for our You Are Not Alone panel discussion. And today we're very privileged to have with us Mr. Gambo Wada. Welcome, Mr. Gambo Wada. Welcome.
Yeah, Amaro, thank you. Nice seeing your face, sir.
Okay, just to give people a little bit of a context of where you're coming from, I'm just going to quickly read just a very brief introduction of Mr. Gambo Wada. This is nothing close to TV. It's just to give us a little appreciation of where he's coming from to kind of position this conversation for the group and for everyone that we're watching hereafter. So our guest today is Mr. Gambo Wada, as I just mentioned, who is a gender-based violence consultant who's currently providing technical support to the RAPA on, that's the WRAPA, on Pillar 6 Spotlight Initiative in Adamawa, as well as the Strengthening Community Referral Mechanism Project in Katsina and Jigawa State. He has over 10 years of working experience working with refugees, IDPs, that's internally displaced people or persons. And of course, he's also an expert on issues surrounding sexual gender-based violence and also how to work with victims and survivors. So we're very welcome and very pleased to have you with us today. So welcome, thank you.
So, Amaro, thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. Yes. Thanks for the introduction. Yes. Yes. Yes, the RAPA stands for Women Rights Advancement and Protection Alternatives for the benefit of listeners.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. That definitely helps. Yeah, that helps us with understanding.
Yes.
Yeah, that helps. So, yeah, we have a few more people coming in. Please kindly mute yourselves once you're in, so that we're not getting interference. So I think we're just gonna jump in, and well, I think we see two people here. I know Maria, you already introduced yourself previously, but just for the recording, would you like to just quickly say one brief thing, like maybe what your expectations are, really quickly? Maria, are you there?
Hi, good day, everyone. Yeah, good day, everyone. My name is Maria. I'm joining in from Lagos, Nigeria, and I was invited by Juliet. And I'm glad to be here because the issue today, or rather the topic we are going to be speaking on, it's something that's actually seen all around us. So it boils down to major interest for me because I find pleasure in knowing what ways we could help when we see people go through gender-based violence around us. We live with it, like I said, it's something that it lives amongst us. So I am very, 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 very interested, being part of this and wanting to know more. And if possible, more knowledge acquired. And in fact, it's just a pleasure being here. And my expectations today, like I said earlier, was that when we are done here today, at least we should be able to know certain things, certain actions, certain manners that we should be able to use to apply or be able to deal with this issue that lives amongst us. So that's just basically my reason for being here, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome. And I see we have another person joining us today. Arinze is his name. Welcome, Arinze. Hello, can you hear us? Okay, looks like he's experiencing some technical difficulties as well. We're just going to jump right in. I think before we actually start the conversation, it's good to kind of give us a little overview of what AXI actually is about. So the Action Against Child Sexual Abuse Initiative is a women-led organization, and we're really focused on using technology, communication technology, to tackle the menace of especially child sexual abuse in Nigeria and also in Africa. We're really focused on doing this by advocacy. We are doing this, having this panel discussion is one way that we want to really spread the word and to get people and tapped into what resources and support groups there are to address this issue. We also, part of our advocacy plan is to engage young children through publication. So Julius and I, we've both written books for children to kind of help them understand and also articulate these words to kind of help them fight against any kind of predatory behaviors that they might encounter, whether it's through their relatives or friends or strangers. I mean, we have to help our children protect themselves against all sorts of, unwanted advances and, of course, sexual abuse. And that this is something that we're really, passionate about. We also have an animated series, an animated podcast series that actually focuses on different aspects of sexual abuse. I don't know, Julia, do you want to quickly just say briefly what that's about?
So we do have a series of podcasts. It's a drama podcast. It's a part of our creating strategy where we have all those dramas and podcasts. We have YouTube channels. Actually, this particular
me? Yes, thank you, Amara. Well, actually, for us that have been in this arena, if I can call it, if I may call it, use that concept, is quite daunting, going by the fact that despite enormous effort and resources going into this effort in trying to kind of reduce the incidences of sexual and gender-based violence incidents, have not been yielding much result. As you mentioned, the UNICEF report, there was this also UN Women report released late last year, 2020, just 6 months, around June, July, some months after COVID. It indicated that there was a huge increase, especially in some areas, with almost like 15 to 20%. And well, also globally, which I hope Nigeria also, going by our inequality index, is taking one of the kind of 1 out of 3 women are being abused based on the data available. So then with this context, the global context, and looking at the issue in Nigeria, for example, the political context, the economic context, the social, and kind of the legal environment, a kind of increase the tendencies of women to be abused. So looking at the political context, well, for politicians, I mean, for people that are in decision-making positions, they are somewhat kind of just providing lip service to the issue, even though you after having kind of a discussion with them, and they kind of indicated, like, as if express their willingness to tackle the issue. But what they do on the other side is like kind of just like child play. They will say, okay, come, we've had you, and we are really disturbed about the incidents or about what is happening to women and girls. But then after a while, you will see things happening, and they don't take concrete action to address the issue. For example, maybe like ensuring kind of making budgets to be able to allocate resources, kind of providing health facilities, kind of ensuring that people are arrested for that. So that is the political aspect. Then, well, the economic aspect also, where looking at the poverty index, the poverty level in Nigerian context, and you may wish to recall that of recent, Nigeria is like tagged among just like the poverty capital of the world, and that says it all, because there is a huge link between being exposed to violations or abuse sexually or otherwise when you are poor, when you don't have access to resources. And this also kind of is more in women, where, going by our cultural and religious beliefs, tend to like give kind of discriminate against women to have access to resources. And also issue of conflict, that is a social dimension, where now in the Northeast, the conflict is still raging. Then we have, I'm right now sitting kind of connecting from Katsina State. In Katsina State, we have at the moment about 7 local governments in a kind of in a very which are very much insecure, and this aggravates the tendencies of violations to be perpetrated, especially as it relates to gender-based violence. Then the legal aspect, we have quite a number of laws that have been passed into being used in the legislation, and also some kind of domesticated. But then the operationalization still remains a challenge, where yes. So most of the times you don't see the implementation of such laws. So
that's a big difference.
Yes.
So you're saying there's a huge difference between what we see in the policy, or what we see as, ownership of the political class, as opposed to what actually happens in real time and in real life. Is that what you're saying? I mean, that's what I'm getting from what you've just told us.
Oh, of course.
Two different worlds, basically.
Yes. You just go and maybe to the commissioner's office, to the governor's office, and to the minister's office, and we have a TBRIs but they will just like raise your hope that as if that is the end, that will definitely address this issue.
So let me just quickly interrupt you here. And I think there are a couple of people who have just come in, and I just want to let them understand what we're doing. So this is You're Not Alone panel discussion, and the title of today's conversation is Responding to the Needs of Sexual Gender-Based Violence Survivors and Victims. And I just want to quickly toggle back to what you just said, Gambo, about the fact that it seems like the political class, they're very much, in favor and want to do something about it. There are laws and so forth, but in terms of implementing these policies, we're not really seeing that. So what should people like us do? I mean, AXA is really heavily invested in advocacy and trying to spread the word and really sensitize and raise awareness of what children and women can do when they find themselves in these unfortunate situations. So what are some ways in which we can, respond to these needs? That's really the crux of the matter today.
Yes, that's really great. Even though the resources are somewhat determine how resources determine how we respond, but basically it's like when you have access to information, be it an information that could actually help people to understand their rights, so to hold people in authority accountable. So it can start from there. For if like people are aware that someone in authority in a given location should do something that could actually kind of protect us. So yes. Then another thing is the awareness. So let people believe that, okay, or have this understanding about how it occurs, where it occurs, and what makes it occur, what make it occur. For example, young girls. So telling them like to behave, to like take care of themselves without much like being exposed to places where such things happen, and maybe like isolated place, or sometimes they can possibly like express themselves. But to be able to have this kind of thinking, to have this information about how it occurs, that it can even someone close to them, maybe a relative can abuse them. So let them know that. And while they have the trust on people, but they should be aware about that this nuances, how it happens when someone touches you here. Tell the person, be like bold enough to say, please don't touch me. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, but then also as a community, it like it starts from the community, maybe the grassroots. Well, it can start by coming up with a mechanism. It's good to have something that people can report at community level, where at least let people be aware that if like someone is kind of trying to violate someone or abuse someone, or has already done that, so let there be a mechanism to report that incident. Yeah. So that, yeah.
That's actually very important. I mean, I think, of course, the money issue is always going to be there, right? We'll never have enough money. So I like the fact that you're talking about this, awareness raising aspect, which is extremely important, because like you mentioned, a lot of children are, unfortunately victims of this kind of, unfortunate, menace, actually, by very close relations, right? So I'm going to ask a question that might be a bit, not controversial. It's not controversial, but I want to talk about the culture of silence in Nigeria. If you could just share a little bit of your insight regarding the culture of violence in Nigeria, the culture of silence in Nigeria and patriarchy, the idea that the man is somewhat a bit can do whatever they want with impunity when it comes to sexual violence. If a woman is raped, it's usually blamed on her. Maybe she's wearing, I don't know. And actually, you don't have to be wearing a short skirt or dress sexy to be raped. I'm telling you. I mean, go ask the young children who are unfortunate victims of it. So a lot of times people just think, oh, a woman should cover herself, and a woman should, the blame is always on the woman and not the man. So if you could just maybe, share a little bit about what we can do about this toxic masculinity, and also this culture of silence where a lot of people just hide in shame, and the society is not open to really bring this to the fore when it occurs. So if you could kindly address that, that would be great.
Actually, one of the key challenge of responding to the needs of gender-based violence victims and survivors is the culture of silence. One, on the part of the survivors or victims, and two, on the part of the policy makers. So on the part of policy makers, sometimes even if it happens, they don't want to condemn, or they don't want to take action. So for me, not taking action alone is a culture of silence, and not ensuring that justice is done to the victim is a culture of silence. But on the part of the victim, well, here, the of silence, there is silence associated with lack of knowledge, and there's a silence associated with the kind of the lack of confidence on the part of for someone to respond to the needs of the survivor. For example, for knowledge, in most cases when that happens, people don't get to know what to do next. And secondly, because they don't know what to do next, so they are always fear what happened in terms of maybe people stigmatizing the person, their loved ones. Just yesterday, I facilitated a session about strengthening the community mechanism in Jigawa, Duse. So there was this story about a girl who was raped 11 times. and by different men. And as you said, because of that patriarchy thinking, and those that raped her still living within the community, and nobody dares to like arrest them or take action against them. And eventually, it was the girl that is being blamed upon, and her family is being like kind of becoming just like the outcast there. So this issue is that, so people don't get to report sometimes because when they report, the respondents do not have, here I'm talking about us that are responding, some of us do not have the required understanding and knowledge of the principles to guard against, not to do harm to the issue, to the victim. So you can see it's two ways. While even when the victim reported, so the respondents, referring, for example, us, don't seem to respect, one, the confidentiality. Two, they don't sometimes like kind of, they blame the person after reporting. Once the girl or the woman reported, the person will say, why did you go to his house? Why did you do it this way? So this all kind of accumulated that over time, the victims tend to lose confidence. When they report, people don't get punished. That is on the part of the silence from the policymakers. Then also when they report, the respondents, tend to blame them. And once we blame them, we disclose their identity, which is key. Yes. First. Okay. So once. Okay, so once the identity is exposed, so they tend to like get exposed within the community, and the stigmatization steps in, and that would now deter another person when violated or abused to report.
So my question, yes. Yeah. So my question there is like, I mean, that's the reality, and that's exactly why we have this organization, and as well as others like, you know, Cheche Yara and of course, we know NAPTIP as well. These are all organizations that are really fighting against, you know, sexual abuse, not only of children, but also of women. And also boys. We haven't even mentioned boys. I think they also are part of this, you know, demographic where they're also you know, vulnerable to sexual abuse. Now, the reality is such that, this is the reality that we face, that in Nigeria, if you're a victim, you're blamed. So what can we do? I feel like there's a need to really increase more stakeholders. And how can we go about doing that? Do we take this to the mosques, to the churches? How do we raise more awareness? Because even this has not been addressed in schools, you know? So how can we raise more awareness and break this ideology of this, that boys and men can commit such horrendous acts? Oh, sorry, Gambo, you're muted. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Well, for example, one of the experiences we've had about engaging boys and men is that we need to step out a bit out to like possibly engage informal groups. Because a lot of things.
Informal or informal groups?
Informal groups. The groups that are, for example, where you have maybe like you engage with.
Could you kindly mute? Yeah, please mute yourself.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the info, for example, in Adamawa, what we did under the Spotlight project, we engaged the KKNFM Association. We engaged like all this, I don't know if you call it, the guys normally sit around this tea joints and food vendors. So it was a very insightful engagement when we received their feedback as what they should do. Then, so we are able to mobilize them and be aware about the SGBV and how it contributes to some of the issues associated with discrimination against women, associated with violence against women. So where in the end, some of them used to call me, they are really thankful for that. Then for mobilizing the religious leaders, it's actually a good platform, especially using the two kind of more popular or bigger platforms, the Christian and the Muslim platforms, and where we possibly through the Jumat or Sunday sermons, where you can reach a bigger audience. But again, it's important to equally work with the traditional authorities at a lower level, at basically community level or rural areas, which in most cases, we are not present there. So the concentration is always like within urban areas, but then the knowledge is absent, maybe in outskirts of outside urban areas. So I believe, yes, for religious leaders, it's actually an entry point to share the knowledge with them, but then to share, to use them and kind of sensitize people about these matters. But at the same time, it's like most people are aware about what is happening, but it's equally important to have a mechanism that people could actually report in a highly discreet manner.
Yeah. So I think, what you're saying is, definitely we want to tap into the informal sectors and of course tap into the religious leaders or that religious space, and try to also reach out to the rural areas where a lot of this crimes are happening. And I completely agree with you. And actually Aksai also focuses on that. We want to use books, children's books, as well as drama. There's something called participatory drama, or the theater of the oppressed, to really engage. Of course we have COVID, so we can't do it, but these are some of the ideas that we have pushed forward to really garner some support, as well as raise this awareness. Because I think what's really eating us, especially those who are suffering, is the mindset, and the problem is you can't tackle the mindset if people do not know, there's an alternative. So we've been talking for quite a while now, and I would like to open it up to our audience. We have quite a few people on this call. And I want to, just maybe, I don't know if you have maybe one last thing to say before we open it up, and maybe there's some people who want to ask you some questions. Gambo, do you want to add anything really quickly, or should we go ahead and have the audience ask questions?
Okay, let's have the audience, please.
Okay, so welcome everyone. You can now turn on your video if you can. To ask a question, you would need to go to, I don't know if you know how to raise your hand. So, or you can just raise your hand physically, and I can call on you to make a contribution. But before I call on anyone here, I would like to invite Juliet, if our director of programs, if the technology is working, because I think she's having some tech issues. Juliet, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. So I'm fine. So before the questions, Mr. Campbell, thank you so much for coming on this program. I mean, you've really educated us, hearing some aspect of the work that is being done it's really amazing. And one of the things I just wanted to talk about before the question, sorry, Amara, I'll just take this time, was about how the patriarchy situation Amara asked about. It's a very strong situation, and most of these issues are happening in very rural areas where education and social media advocacy and all sorts of cannot really reach. Like, what kind of programs are being done? I heard what you said about the involvement of boys and men, but what kind of programs are being done locally for rural areas? Sorry, the part about how you engage men formally and informally, I also got that. But looking at leadership, I'm looking at from a leadership position, I don't know. So Mr. Gambo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going to, like, what involvement, like locally, traditional rulers, religious rulers, because we're talking about the culture of silence and patriarchy, and I think all this is bound on culture, and the major stakeholders of culture in this major places where you're talking about, like the issue of the girl that was raped, are these rulers, both the traditional and the religious rulers. And so that's my question, Mr. Gambo.
Yes, thank you, Juliet. It's actually the traditional or religious platforms are a good ground for a good entry point take home some of kind of change of perception about how men in some areas see women. Then in the aspect of mobilizing traditional rulers, so I remember when it was last year under another project, not this project, where what we did was to first of all engage traditional rulers by inviting them. It was a face-to-face kind of meeting. There are almost like more than 100 in Adamawa State from various locations. So what we did, we had to first of all kind of let them know the basics of gender-based violence and how it affects women more and why there is need, because it's critical to especially use the human rights-based thinking or approach to establish that we all have rights, even in as much as a man has a right to based on the thinking to marry as many wives as possible, but then equally the women should equally have right on that man. And going by the realities on ground, because we're looking at the sexual health and economic rights, then with this, we are able to let them know what is actually the issue. Then secondly, we recognize them as the respondents, not without the challenges, because some of their complaint or some of the excuses is that they are not constitutionally recognized to take action. But in as much as from our own part, we said, okay, we agree, but then by default, they are kind of leaders of communities. So they should as well address some of these issues, which we mostly also do a follow-up. This equally has to go face to face, because the challenge of the connectivity here, I can see that even Juliet struggled with the internet. So then let alone going to rural areas. So it's actually some of this engagement should be done, I think, face to face. Even though for using the IT now, I think there are some debates where you call the representatives. For example, we have the WOWICAN, we have the CAN, we have the GNI, we have the Jamaat Nasrul Islam, that's the GNI. Then we have some couple of bigger platforms where you can use their leaders to kind of organize this kind of the discussions that we are having, and also be able to mobilize. It's good that this can accommodate thousands, depending on how you arrange it. So with this, I think if we can achieve that, possibly identify some religious leaders and traditional leaders, also acknowledge their contribution, and also let them know what are the issues and let them understand the issues surrounding SGBV, then reach out to them, engage them, talk about the issue, and also specifically request or kind of demand them to take action based on the realities on ground.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that contribution, Gambo, and thank you for that really good insight and question. Julia, do you want to ask another question, or shall we go ahead?
Okay, sorry. So I have it's more like a question and a contribution. So I'll just take that and then I will leave. Then I will let the next person speak. Sorry. So I was going to talk about. I remember during your discussion you talked about the response system. I know Mr. Gambo is working in the social sector. So when we're talking about response, you particularly asked if there were response for schools, because I remember one time we had for students, like, is there a connection, a response for schools, a response system for schools? I don't know if he answered that question. You can correct me if he did. I think I was listening, but I didn't hear any answer to that question.
Mr. Gambo, you can answer the question, please. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you talk about the referral or the reporting system in schools. Is that what you're referring to, please?
Exactly. Is that a system in place for schools to help curb crimes in schools? You know that these perpetrators can be even their teachers. So what system has been put in place in schools, be it public or private schools, that tracks this? Because we're talking about your data, you work in the data sector. How is the reporting system? How do you take note of these people? Because I've not heard of any scapegoats in any school that, oh, this person abused the child. I've heard a couple of it in some private schools, but of course in our public schools, it's like there's nothing, it doesn't exist.
Well, yes, for example, just to share an experience, and 2 days ago, we equally had, because this kind of engagement came at really a good time. And, just 2 days ago, I had an engagement here with virtually about 30 up to like 40 civil society organizations, mostly women-led organizations, including those coming from public schools. We have a women or girls only public schools here. So there was a representative from there. And so one of the, during experience sharing sessions, she made mention that there was this, a couple was posted to their school who eventually impregnated a girl. And so, but what happened afterwards that initially they tried to raise a bit, kind of take the matter up. But after a couple of months, the matter died down. And so they actually blame the girl. And she has to, her parents had to like, she had to drop from school. Then again, of recent, there was a case that in Katsina State also, in one of the secondary schools, where a vice principal impregnated a girl of 12, 13 years, I think a JS2 student, just of recent. And that became, maybe I'll look for the video and share with you. It actually became kind of came out really well because the man was arrested. And so we have seen his arrest, and the girl eventually gave birth through CS. So, but then during the last 2 days engagement, and so I asked, the way you asked this question, I asked the representative from the girls only public school, but actually there are some measures being taken to address the situation and to prevent it, not only to respond, because in most cases we are always reacting, and we don't get to be proactive. So I asked her, what have they done, going by what happened with that girl? So she said, I equally asked her if they have the protection against sexual exploitation and abuse policy. She said, yes, they do. But then what happened? And she said, I asked her if the staff get to sign it on their deployment? And she said, yes. Then I asked her, so what about volunteers? And referring to corpus, she said, yes. Then what happened? So she said, just there is no kind of a system that could actually link that survivor or that victim, or a system that could expose, because it starts from there, expose the perpetrator, then take action through follow-up, get police to do a thorough investigation, then charge the perpetrator to the court, and the court give that the hearing a kind of a speedy, kind of all the necessary attention that it deserves. So as it is, the challenge is that while most of the schools don't get to understand, because it's key, people need to know what is gender-based violence, well, and what are the forms. So they have to know that, so that, because I remember during the engagement, that representative, the lady from the school, was really became very interested, and it was like something has opened kind of thinking.
They were able to make a link. They were able to make a
Yes,
link.
exactly. So
Yeah.
the violence dimension associated with that. Again, and despite that, I know in Adamawa some organizations used to go to schools, share some pamphlets, and also engage the school authorities about especially sexual and reproductive health rights of young girls. But the aspect of coordination on the part of the respondents, I mean, is not there. So you can see the pockets of organizations doing and individuals doing things here and there, but which I hope using this platform you can as well mobilize as many civil society as possible, and possibly engage schools to link up to this kind of programs.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that insight, Gambo. I completely agree with you. And Julia, thank you so much for that insight as well, because that kind of helped us explore that area even further. You're absolutely right. There's a huge need to fill these gaps. There are a lot of knowledge gaps that are extremely detrimental to so many children. I mean, like every child that is, sexually abused, it carries a traumatic burden for a lifetime. And that could end up turning into behavioral issues, violence, aggression. It could cause diseases. I mean, there's so many different ways in which the effects of trauma can really heavily impact the life of an individual. So there is a huge cost that comes at the foot of any kind of sexual violence against children and women, and also boys, and in some cases men. So I want to just open it up now. I think we've had a lot of conversation. Thank you so much for the discussion. I'm going to open it up now, and please, if you have any questions, this is a good time to post them. You can either write them on the chat box, or you can also ask directly. I want to welcome Chichi Morris. She just joined us. Welcome. FYI, she's my sister.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so are there any questions? Any question? Okay, if there are no questions, are there any takeaways or any insights that you've gotten from this discussion? Okay. You're muted, Juliet.
Okay, so listening to Mr. Gambo, thank you so much. It was so interesting listening to you. And FYI, okay, Mr. Gambo actually works in the far north, so he's also working in the highly disturbed areas, the areas that are being, attacked by terrorists and all that, the Boko Haram region. So, he's actually talking from a very in-depth and situation. But I was just thinking that a takeaway here is that, Amara, I was just thinking that, okay, I mean, he has opened up a whole new discussion on the fact that a lot of schools do not have anything in place, and anything in place to help the system, the preventive system, before we talk about the response, like you said. So I was just thinking, it could be a takeaway for us to begin to think of how to have safety clubs, in schools. We can have a system of safety clubs in schools that, schools can have the I don't know what to call it, but a system that, it could be unified, just like we have the Toastmasters, a situation that, can be everywhere, and children can be part of those clubs, and they can learn something. So that was like a takeaway for me.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. When we talk about, raising awareness, and also empowering children too. We should be able to give children the words to articulate, no. Like there should be a way, or some way of empowering children to stand up against, sexual abuse or unwanted touch, inappropriate touch. A lot of children, because they're not trained or don't even know what's happening when it's happening, because their parents are not talking to them about it and the schools are not talking to them about it. So I absolutely agree that one way we can do this is actually by creating spaces in schools. When I was in school, we had a lot of, there were like religious clubs and the debate club and the food club. So we should also have a club that tackles, gender-based violence and to kind of really empower children. And I think it should be in every school. Like children should know these things. If parents don't even know how to articulate them, then the school should kind of take it up. And because of the economic burden of that, so I see Jennifer is nodding her head. So Jennifer, I'm going to call you to say something. A few words, please go ahead. While you tell us what you're nodding your head, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, hi, good evening. I keep nodding my head because, like everything makes sense, and I'm so excited I should go on the meeting today. So, Mr. Gambo, good evening. Can you hear me? Hi, good evening. So, it's been amazing just listening, and then, can you hear me? I'm so worried the network is not properly clear.
No, you're coming in very well. You're very nice and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, first of all, I'm so happy that this is something that more people talk about now, because 10 years ago, this was not something that we could even talk about comfortably like this, and I'm amazed that it's happening, because there's so many cases that people can't even talk about. Like, I'm just going to use an example for the very recent one that happened in the one with the Deeper Life boy and his mom that's been everywhere, speaking about it. And it's so incredible, because I went to a boarding school. So, and funny story, I'm in Port Harcourt. I schooled in Port Harcourt. I've not been here to the past 12 years. So I went to my high school today. And I'm happy I'm on this Zoom video, because I can't even imagine being at that age and going through some things and you can't even talk about it, So I'm excited that we can talk about it, but I'm sure it's even worse in the north. So I can't even imagine. So thank you very much, Mrs. Juliet, for getting me to join this meeting. I'm so excited because I'm happy we can talk about it comfortably. It's amazing. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you for your contribution and for sharing. This definitely helps. I mean, it's the very first panel discussion that we're having, and we're going to be having more of these. So definitely stay tuned. I've put in the link below, the link to our website, so you can check out what the work we're doing. And we're going to be talking a bit more about some of the advocacy products that we've produced for schools. I want to also maybe invite Maria to say something before we close for the day. Maria, are you there? You're on mute if you're trying to speak. Okay, so maybe Chichi, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name's Chichi Morris. I'm Marta's younger sister. Sorry, I joined really late. I just saw the link now, and yeah, I have a couple of things to add. Just because I joined at the tail end, I have been able to grasp just a little bit of the conversation, and I definitely do support the clubs. I think it's important to have a safe space, and children most likely feel safest perhaps in school with their peers, especially if they're going through any form of abuse at home. So definitely, we did have those clubs, a press club and health club and food club. It's important to have one of those clubs where the language is being taught to the children so they understand what's actually happening to them. Like Amachi said, many times they do not have the vocabulary to express what has happened. Their bodies know something has happened and that thing is not right. However, they may not know how to vocalize it. I mean, if you grew up in Nigeria, you'd know that there are many, many cases. And as Jennifer said, the case with the Dipper Life boy has been really sad to watch. And you still see people judging this woman who is coming out to, voice her opinion on what's happened to her child. And if one went to boarding school, you'd know there are a lot of incidences like this. So definitely do support your work. It's fantastic that this is coming to light. We're speaking more about it. I just think it's important to train parents on how to talk to their children about their bodies. Of course, well, people may say it's not our culture, but it is our culture to protect our children. And to protect your child, you must give them the tools to describe what's going on in their lives. I also think perhaps the relationship between parents and children is a bit strained, I would say, in Nigeria, in the sense that it's not very emotional. It's not very, sorry, I have a little girl here. I love my mom, I love my dad. My mom cooks for me and gives me food. My dad pays for my school fees. And it doesn't, in many cases, not all, it doesn't transcend past that. It's more the friend then replace that relationship of talking and describing their experiences. So I think we need to tell parents or teach parents that it's okay to have a relationship with your child. It doesn't mean you're on the same level as them or your mates or, whatever the cultural values describe or say. I think that's something that we need to focus on as well. The tightness, the relationship, and homes being a comfortable space for children to be able to voice their experiences and not feel they're bad kids or they're in trouble or they've done something wrong, because it's never their fault. That's my 2 cents. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chichi, for articulating so beautifully and helping us gain some more insights to your perspective as well. So that's really helped the conversation. I don't know if Maria is there. If not, I'm going to just quickly wrap up. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to also say that we are going to be having these panel discussions with various speakers. And just as Gambo and literally everyone has mentioned, the school aspect is so fundamental. And so Juliet and I, we've actually written books to address these issues, and they can be found on the website. I just put in the link to everyone there. Juliet wrote a beautiful book called Roar. I don't know, Juliet, do you want to just say very quickly one line about your book, what your book it's intended for? Juliet. Oh no, I think nah, sorry about the network. Oh, okay. You're muted.
Okay, so Raw is a children's storybook. It's actually Raw, the Bold Voices, and it's a children's storybook that tells the story of sexual abuse from the eyes of children. This book actually just these children told their story. It was more like from the eyes of children, and then it's such an amazing story. I actually had my friend review, and I can tell you that it's a book that every little child, girl or boy, needs to read, because it cuts across every sexuality. It cuts across every sex. So be you a male, be you female, be you boy, be you girl. I mean, it could happen to anyone. And my story talked about the abuse of a boy child, a girl child. You could see it was, So I'll just stop here. I don't want to go on and on. I'll just stop here, Amara. So we'll definitely have a review on this. So Amara, I'll just stop here now.
All right. Thank you very much, Juliet, for that. And it's actually very beautifully illustrated as well, might I add. I also wrote a book. It's called My Body Belongs to Me, and it's a book of affirmations. Just like I noticed a gap, I wanted children to have the words to articulate feelings of discomfort, and also to articulate how beautiful and wonderful they are. Children need to be affirmed in these positive ways, because that allows them to stand tall. And of course, we want to also give children the permission to speak out when something bad happens, or they feel uncomfortable. They know that it's necessary for them to report it. A lot of kids go through trauma and they don't say a word because either they're threatened or they're ashamed or don't even know how to, or don't even know they're being abused, right? So I want to be able to encourage children to use their words by reading this book I wrote called My Body Belongs to Me. So we're going to be having another panel discussion about that, and hopefully involving teachers and parents as well. At this time, I really want to thank Mr. Gambo. Thank you so very much for coming in, for really lending us your expertise and you're very deeply, obviously very deeply ingrained in the work, and what you're doing is phenomenal. The fact that you're a man is even more phenomenal because you're really setting a great example, a great model for other men out there. We know how toxic some men can be when it comes to these issues, and we want good role models out there to show what a real man is. A real man is not the kind of man that just, thinks he can, carry out some sexual misconduct and get away with it. Some people think that's actually quite cool. We need to break those stereotypes. And I think that you're a great example of what a real man is. Thank you so much for standing up for women and for doing this
thanks
work.
So much.
It's so important. It's so
thanks
important.
So much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined. I mean, without you coming and listening, we'll have nothing. So even if you joined in late, your contributions, as you can see, has been so important. So thank you so much for everyone who've joined. Thank you to Maria, who joined in very early, Jennifer, Chichi, of course, Juliet and I, we've been putting this together, and it's been really fun. And it's the very first time, and I think we're off to a very good start. So thank you so much for your support, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you and have a good day. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes.